No, she was terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how has your approach differed, would you say?
I think it's vastly different. And if you ask people, even in the legacy media, even the Trump haters, they will tell you the approach has been much different. Not just from me, but
They
the
admit that
entire
to you.
White House. Oh, absolutely. They come in my office every day and they'll admit that off the record.
All right, visualize this former Trump White House aide, Karoline Leavitt, a former House staffer who is now the Trump 2024 campaign's national press secretary, enters a media environment that is not very welcoming. Now, this wasn't just a brief guest appearance when Karoline played it safe. We're talking about The View, a show that is notorious for its strong opinions, frequent interruptions, and presenters who aren't afraid to express their feelings about Trump or anyone in his inner circle. She appeared prepared, almost as if she had anticipated the attacks, but had chosen to appear nonetheless. To put it this way, from the start, no talk was permitted. She was literally thrown off the air by Whoopi, who interrupted her just seconds into her opening statement. However, Leavitt didn't simply stop talking after that. She went on the media circuit right away, explaining why she was cut off and why she wasn't shocked. He claimed that the public was terrified of a conservative voice criticizing their purchase, particularly when it was broadcast live and their viewers might actually hear something unexpected. Let's face it, this isn't some random drama. For a while now, Karoline and the women of The View have been at odds. You could almost sense it coming when she finally landed on that couch, because she had already clapped back several times when they made small comments at her. It was inevitable that something would fall.
And I asked him, how should we even describe this? And talking to our team after, I was drafting up a tweet and I was like, there are no words to put out a statement to describe this horrific scene.
Okay, since it was an unexpected occurrence, let's move on to the true tale of this viral moment. There is a significant build-up here, but everything begins to make much more sense when you consider the bigger picture. To begin with, Karoline Leavitt is not a new celebrity. She was among the youngest women to hold the position of press secretary in the Trump White House, and ever since, she has been outspoken in her criticism of what she perceives to be prejudice in the media, particularly on programs like The View. Naturally, that caused some feathers to ruffle over the past year or so. If you've seen The View, you may have noticed that Karoline's name has appeared in less than flattering ways. When Joy Behar wants to get rid of someone without getting too dirty, she frequently uses that sarcastic tone in her small jab comments. And Whoopi, the eye rolls could have had their own highlight reel. To put it mildly, it was obvious that the panel didn't take Karoline seriously after making fun of her policy stances and casting doubt on her reliability. However, this is where things become intriguing. In fact, Karoline gave a few backhands outside the show. She made it obvious that she wouldn't be compromising simply because someone on TV didn't agree with her beliefs, and shared tweets and interview clips criticizing the viewpoint as what she refers to as a Democrat echo chamber. She posed a serious danger to the show's structure and the host's personal comfort zone because of her attitude.
Nothing is off limits. They will go after you and your family, and everything is on the line when you decide to be a public servant and run. But I don't have no regret.
When Karoline began speaking during her most recent appearance, you could sense the tension in the room. She mentioned media prejudice before she could even complete her first complete phrase. Whoopi jumped in and interrupted her entirely. Whoopi had already been pushing buttons before then, but they immediately shut her off and threw the show into commercial mode like it was nothing. She made a few remarks that were obviously intended to cast doubt on Karoline's credentials. Things like implying that she was merely Trump's devoted spokesperson, or that her age and attractiveness were the sole reason she had her position. You know the kind, smiling and saying something incisive enough to make others cringe. Let's face it, that's the Hollywood elite strategy. Say something nasty, but make it seem like a joke. Even worse, you could see Whoopi believed she was being shrewd. She thought Karoline would either laugh it off or become agitated. But that wasn't the case. Karoline remained silent. She didn't use the same level of sarcasm as Whoopi. She simply looked straight ahead and stated something like, "When you silence someone because you don't like what they're saying, that says more about your fear than it does about my words," which completely changed the atmosphere in the room. To be honest, you could sense the studio's quiet. Sunny and Joy, the hostesses who typically jump in to pour on, just kind of palmed that particular moment was unique. It didn't need to be dramatic, but it wasn't. That's why it worked so well. It was a type of clapback where intelligibility was more important than volume. You're not angry because I'm wrong, Karoline was essentially stating. You're upset because I'm correct, and you no longer have control over the argument. And when viewers saw the video of her quickly and calmly shutting it down, it began to become viral online. People appreciated that she didn't fall for the ruse, that she didn't make it into a brawl, and that she allowed the facts to speak for themselves. The contrast between her composed manner and Whoopi's annoyance was particularly striking.
I would like this young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job. The wokeness was put in place for a reason. Because black people couldn't get into colleges. Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian, this is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world.
Whoopi attempted to bounce back following Karoline's cool-headed but direct remark, but let's just say that it didn't. Whoopi began interrupting Karoline by raising her voice and hurling sporadic, poorly placed punches rather than changing the tone or continuing. It felt frantic rather than sharp. She was acting less like a TV veteran holding court and more like an unhinged aunt at Thanksgiving dinner trying to win a shouting match that no one asked for. Sonny and Joy then attempted to join in, thinking they could salvage the situation with some teamwork, but it didn't help. If anything, it made things appear worse. Her usual authority as the View's anchor simply wasn't clicking, as evidenced by her body language. The back and forth devolved into a flurry of interruptions and annoyance, and it became quite clear that their goal was to silence Karoline rather than engage in conversation. Despite this, Karoline didn't even bat an eye. Instead, she leaned back, grinned slightly, and maintained a level tone. She appeared much more in charge than the other panelists combined, just based on that. She didn't have to yell or roll her eyes. She just needed to remain composed while the others spoke for her. Whoopi lost it at that point. It wasn't about who had the strongest argument. Rather, it was about who maintained their composure. She bungled her opportunity to reassert herself and came off as defensive, loud, and somewhat out of touch.
And they're also exhausted, by the way,
Oh, they
because
must
we are
be.
doing so much.
And not even in a wussy, sad little
Yeah.
way. Like, they must be exhausted because it's just it's nonstop.
It's insane.
This wasn't just another poorly executed guest appearance. This seemed to be a pivotal moment. Karoline entered an area that is typically filtered, controlled, and tailored to meet the comfort zone of the View, and she completely changed the energy. She couldn't keep up with Whoopi's volume. She stood out in that setting only by letting her thoughts and delivery do the talking instead of adhering to the typical yelling battle structure. People observed that viewers sensed a change, and that presence was more important than politics. It's obvious that Karoline Leavitt did more than simply survive the section she owned, regardless of your opinions. Whoopi and her group, meanwhile, appeared caught off guard. Without hesitation, the Internet Karoline was declared the winner by memes. People praised it as a masterpiece and poised in the comment sections, but it left a more significant point unanswered. Gets the View finally losing its reputation as the premier source for unquestionable commentary? If guests like Karoline continue to appear with confidence in facts, this won't be the last time the View gets fact-checked on its own program. What do you guys think? Was this just more political theater? Or did Karoline deliver the retaliation Whoopi had anticipated?